Welcome back, beautiful tri-state area. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, iHeartRadio. I'm your host, Zen Sams. Welcome to another Going Deep segment in the Expert on the Microphone series. Today, we're tackling the truths and myths surrounding menopause and perimenopause. This stage of life has been misunderstood and overlooked for far too long, leaving many women feeling unsupported and just misinformed. Today, we aim to change that. Joining us are two incredible women who are leading the charge in their respective fields. Dr. Ashley Winter is a board-certified urologist and sexual medicine specialist who is reshaping the conversation around intimacy, pelvic health, and menopause. And returning contributor Lana Kerr, founder and CEO of CO2 Lift and Lumisque Skincare, which are pioneers of medical-grade carboxy therapy treatments designed to rejuvenate and empower women from head to literal toe. Together, they're going to help us demystify menopause, address the stigma, and empower women to advocate for themselves. Getting started now on breaking the silence, demystifying menopause, and reclaiming our health and confidence. Welcome to the show, superstars.
Yeah, hi.
So nice to have you on. Ashley, it's an honor. I've been following your page on Instagram from one mama to another. Boy, do you ever juggle it all. Keep it real, keep it fresh, and really keep it entertaining. Let's dive right in because this is something that has been irking us women way too long. What's the biggest myth or stigma you encounter about menopause and sexual health, and how do you address it with your patients?
That menopause is just hot flashes and night sweats, right? It is every single part of your body. It is our bone strength, it is our cognition, it is our energy levels, it is our weight, it is urinary tract infections, which is something I specialize in as a urologist. It's our intimacy, it's our ability to get lubricated, it's our sexual desire, it is the quality of our skin. It is so many things, and it affects every aspect of our body. And it's not just about while you are experiencing those hot flashes and night sweats and mitigating it. It is about saying, what do I want the entire second half of my life to look like? And what am I going to do to be the most vital person I possibly can? So I think that is the biggest myth, that it's just a few symptoms, and it's not. It's really every aspect of our bodies.
Wow, what is it not at that point? Well, that was the question I should have led off with. And it's so interesting. You touched on something important. Misinformation and women thinking that it's just about hot flashes and night sweats, but it goes further. With over 50% of postmenopausal women that are experiencing the genitourinary symptoms, yet fewer than like 25% seek treatment due to embarrassment or lack of knowledge. So I'm going to ask you one further question, Dr. Ashley. You've been a vocal advocate for vaginal estrogen to support urinary and sexual health. Can you explain why this treatment is often overlooked and how it can really drastically improve quality of life for menopausal women?
Yes, I love this question. It is my favorite topic to discuss in the entire world. So, the vagina and the bladder and the urethra and the vulva, so our labia and our clitoris, all of that is exquisitely sensitive to hormones, both estrogen and actually testosterone. And using ultra low dose vaginal preparations of these hormones allows your body to avoid things like urinary tract infections, overactive bladder, bladder inflammation, bladder pain, incontinence. It also is critical for maintaining your ability to lubricate when you're interested in sex. It makes your tissue plump, stretchy, responsive. It allows us to avoid pain with sex. So it is an incredible treatment, and it is exquisitely safe. We know with study after study on really at this point tens of thousands of women that low doses of vaginal hormones do not increase risk of breast cancer, blood clots, and anything. Like, it is so safe and so effective. And in terms of why it's underutilized, There are a number of reasons. I can tell you one of the biggest issues is that in the United States, there is an FDA issued black box warning on all of these products saying that they can increase risk of endometrial cancer, breast cancer, dementia, blood clots, when the data is abundantly clear that it does not, right? So, how are women and their healthcare providers going to get past a non-evidence based labeling that is put there by our own government entity, right? And because of that, it becomes extremely underutilized and women suffer as a consequence.
It's eye-opening to learn that such an effective treatment is underutilized. So thank you for clarifying this. And now, studies show, and I'm going to pivot to Lana, that 60% of women experience skin changes during menopause, such as dryness, thinning, or loss of elasticity, but many don't know how to address these issues. So Lana, CO2 Lift has been recognized for its carboxytherapy treatments. How do these products help address skin changes, including the skin down there, that occur during menopause, and what kind of results can women really expect?
We think of this analogy of this grape and a raisin, which I like to point out. We're born this beautiful grape, plump looking, and then we eventually turn into this raisin. So fortunately, we have the technology that slows it down, but it's the same thing that is happening downstairs. So blood flow, which is very important for our clitoris because that requires blood flow to operate optimally, it starts to slow down, so that can start to shrink. The skin, our vaginal tissue, the skin is similar to what's under our eyes. It's very thin, so eventually stops to lubricate and eventually leads to painful sex. So very much like on the face, there's a difference in terms of our formulation for the V, in terms of the pH. By using it down there, women are going to experience greater pleasure, as from our clinical studies, double blind, have shown increased because we address clitoral atrophy. It's going to plump that area. It's going to make that operate more effectively. It's going to thicken the tissue in our vaginal tissue so it feels like it's tighter. It feels nicer. It's healthier tissue, so women are experiencing less incontinence, less urinary tract infections, because again, it balances the pH. So it has been very effective. And I'm a big advocate of hormones. I've been taking that since I was in my mid 40s. And still, I recognize there was still a decrease in my sensitivity, which is why we created the CO2 Lift. But for women who are not necessarily open to taking hormones for whatever reason, this is also a great option because it's going to help in a very similar way to what vaginal estrogen, of course, is not as inexpensive, is doing, but even more so in other areas because it includes blood flow. It is a biostimulator and a bioregenerator. So it's putting your body in a position to regenerate the tissue so it can function as it did when we were more youthful.
It's exciting to hear about such innovative solutions for something so many women face. So thank you, Lana. And I love that you're at the forefront of these technologies, and clinical verification and clinical research, I know, are of the utmost importance to you and your team. Now, research shows that 40% of women experience low libido during menopause, but few discuss it with their doctors due to stigma. So Dr. Ashley, how do you approach conversations about low libido with your patients, and what treatments or strategies do you recommend to help them regain intimacy and connection in their relationships?
We know that there are profound physical factors that can really affect our libido. So number one, low testosterone. Testosterone is the most prevalent hormone in all human bodies, including women, and it decreases over time. And a profound number of women in perimenopause and menopause have low testosterone level. And of course, that impacts libido, right? So that is something that's incredibly critical to check and treat. There is extensive data supporting that. There's a Cochrane review, so that's the most robust type of meta-analysis demonstrating that basically there's strong recommendation to treat women in menopause with low sexual desire with testosterone. Okay, it is not fringe. This is well-regarded data. And then there's also actually two different medications that are FDA approved for low sexual desire. One is called flibanserin and the other is called bremelanotide. They both work on the neurochemicals in the brain because you can have a balance that goes towards inhibitory signals in the brain, like sex inhibitory signals and not the pro-sex signals. So when I have a patient coming into my office with low sexual desire and they say, hey, I want to be horny, I want to be initiating, I want to be excited about sex, I don't want to just be responding to the feeling that my partner needs sex, right? How do we get there? So we're going to address the psychosocial component. We're going to refer them to therapy if they need it. We're going to check their testosterone levels and prescribe that if they need it. And then we're going to discuss the FDA-approved medications for low sexual desire. There are tools to get you horny and initiating and excited about sex, and you deserve to feel that way.
I love it. I love this. Is great. So, a woman will spend about 1/3 of her life in menopause. You alluded to this earlier, but so many of us lack the knowledge or resources to navigate this stage confidently. And I say that confidently because that's the optimal word. So, Lana, you've spoken about how your CO2 lift vaginal treatment is really designed to address vaginal health issues. I know that your product supports women during menopause, but why do you feel it's important for women to feel comfortable in seeking these kind of solutions?
I think, well, first of all, because we're so cerebral, women, Dr. Ashley referred to this, there's a component, our brain is actually, I feel for women one of our biggest sexual organs, right? So I think women need to understand the benefits of sex to them. Like, what is the benefit of a good sexual relationship with their partner? That's one. So they have to understand that. And then they have to, then they have to recognize that just because they're getting older, or just like they seek help for their skin, they need to look at what is happening down there, and there is a solution to the issues of aging down there, whether it be in our drive and so on.
It's really inspiring to hear about treatments like yours that not only improve health, but also boost confidence. And I love that you took matters into your own hands and used yourself to set precedents of what women truly want and feel by virtue of knowing what your body was going through. And then you applied that logic to your formula, and boom, you have such a proprietary product. I've used both your products, and I can attest to both of them, both on the vaginal level and on the skincare level. Incredible. Now, chronic pelvic pain affects up to 25% of women, but many are unaware of the link between pelvic floor dysfunction and menopause. Interesting, right? So, Dr. Ashley, again, this is your field of expertise. You work closely with pelvic physical therapists. How does collaboration with these specialists benefit women experiencing that chronic pelvic pain or sexual dysfunction during menopause?
The muscles of your pelvic floor are critical for so many things. So if they spasm, it leads to pain with sex. If you can't tension them correctly, it can lead to reduced orgasm strength, right? Clenching those pelvic floor muscles helps you improve your orgasm quality. If they are spasming, you might have to feel like you have to pee all the time. You're not going to want to have sex if you feel like you're going to lose urine, right, during sexual activity. It can lead to pain after sex, after you orgasm, in both men and women. So these muscles, like the vagina, bladder, urethra, clitoris, and vulva, these muscles are also very sensitive to hormones. So you can have direct changes to the muscle function when your testosterone level goes down in both men and women, and when your estrogen level goes down. But on top of that, if your tissue, right, is affected from menopause, if you are dry, if you cannot lubricate, if the vaginal lining does not stretch the way it's supposed to, then you develop a response to that negative sexual experience where you tense your muscles, right? So it's all connected. It can be the initiator or the outcome of sexual dysfunction. In terms of how I approach this, I examine the pelvic floor on any patient of mine who I think it's appropriate. I refer to pelvic floor physical therapy all the time. And then there are often interventions that we do, such as injecting things like Botox into the pelvic floor that can be really helpful for people who are experiencing muscle spasm or pain with sex. And oftentimes I'll do that in consultation with a pelvic floor physical therapist who says, I noticed on exam there's a point of tension in this specific area, we're going to target it, right? Just the same way somebody with headaches can benefit from Botox inserted in muscles around their forehead. We can help people with sexual pain who have tension in certain muscles in their pelvis.
Boy, you got a lot of stuff in that toolbox of yours. So Lana, in the line of work that you do, how do you help debunk the stigma surrounding about our skin down there? And what's the most common misconception about it, specifically during menopause?
So just by, I think, conversations, just open conversations with no kind of laughing about it, not making fun of it. At first when we started, before, there are people like Ashley, which I love talking about this subject. When I was in my 40s, I didn't really see anyone having that conversation. When we started it, we would put a lot of humor to it because women were very uncomfortable. Now I've changed that. We're just talking straight, just like we would talk about skincare on our face. We talk about aging on our knees. It's almost like we jumped past our middle section, went to the knees, and forgot about our vulva and vagina. So the conversations, I think, talking about the fact that this is just a normal part of aging that now we have a solution for, is going to help women to feel open about having those conversations. That's one of the biggest things I think that we do as a company. Also using my own example, I tend to lead by example. In fact, even we talked about, Ash was talking about muscles. I did the vaginoplasty, not that I needed it right now, but just because I wanted to know what women experience when they're going for, what would be the benefit of doing that for myself. Using myself an example, being very honest and candid about my own experience has helped open up the conversations for many other women.
Practical and actionable advice that anyone can use. Thank you, Lana. So back to Dr. Winter. So urinary tract infections become increasingly common during menopause due to those hormonal changes, but the connection is just not always clear to patients. So Dr. Winter, can you explain how menopause increases the risk of UTIs and what proactive steps can we take to really maintain urinary tract health as we age?
Yes. The urethra is much shorter in women than in men. And because of that, women are more susceptible to urinary infections, right? We know that urinary tract infections are up to 30 times more common in women than in men. And it is actually the most common bacterial infection in existence, right? That is a
Oof.
huge statistic. Yes. And in the United States, hundreds of thousands of people are hospitalized every year with urinary tract infections, right? So it's not like the sexy topic in the news that everyone's talking about, but it is a massive impact on our health and our quality of life. Now, because the female urethra is short, we need the vulva and the vagina to be healthy. And when they are healthy, the pH in the vagina is low, and this bacteria, your microbiome called the lactobacillus, act as a defense. They live in your vagina, they live around the urethra, and they act as the barrier to bad bacteria getting up through your urethra into the bladder and causing a UTI. Okay. So it is very important to support the microbiome of the vagina to prevent urinary tract infections. When estrogen levels go down, the vagina stops making the food for that healthy bacteria called lactobacillus. It stops making it, and the vaginal pH goes up. So your defenses essentially go away. When you use a low-dose vaginal hormone, vaginal estrogen, for example, which we know from our prior conversation is so safe, you allow that microbiome to thrive. So I tell people vaginal hormones are essentially the prebiotic of the vagina, and that prebiotic is the most important thing you can do when you're going through perimenopause and menopause to prevent urinary tract infections, really by addressing the root cause and doing something that's natural, right? What is not natural is being on endless courses of antibiotics that can cause you to get yeast infections. It becomes this horrible cycle, right? So you have something, vaginal hormones, that allows you to stay moist, lubricated, comfortable, aroused in response to sexual activity, and also prevents you from having UTIs.
Such practical advice for women who just feel stuck in a cycle of discomfort. I love the way you just phrased and really just framed everything, because menopause is really, it's often referred to as a silent revolution, right? So I like that we're addressing and putting forth the proper information so women can empower themselves. Now, Lana, this is my last question. So I'm going to go back to the silent revolution. It's really referred to this across the board, but the workplace stigma surrounding it leads to a lack of support for women during this phase. So, as someone who empowers women through your work, what advice can you give to women facing menopause in the workplace? How can they advocate for themselves navigating this transition and still really just not be ashamed?
That's such a big question, and I think it has multiple answers to that. For me, what I think about is starts with your own belief system on menopause. I think when women look at menopause as a like that caterpillar or that going into a butterfly, I look at menopause and I'm in menopause. I've finished my period. I feel like I'm at the top of my game. I think that's where it starts. I think when women feel that way about themselves, not look at themselves as a victim, not look, oh, we're in this part of our life. This is a great time to be alive. It's a great part of our life. We've had our children, we've developed our business, we've had all of this experience, and now we know that there's technology that can help to keep us functioning youthfully. I think it starts with our own perception of who we are, because once we present ourselves in that, we're not going to see or really take on the negativity that people, men or even other women may have for this area of our lives. To me, that is where it should start. And it's in order to have that, it starts with information, education, going on to subscribing to information like what Dr. Winter is talking about, helps to make you feel empowered so you don't feel in any way deficient at this part of our life. And then you function, and you function even better than younger women. Ashley, I know you're in your 40s right now, but I mean, I feel, in other words, it starts with who you feel you are. And I think that's where we need to begin.
That's a great empowering answer and great advice that can help women take control of their narrative. Thank you, Lana. Any closing thoughts, Dr. Winter?
I'm just so happy to be here, and I'm so glad we're having these conversations. I think 20 years ago, this would not have been on talk radio. Like literally your station, I grew up with my grandmother listening to your station. I grew up in New Jersey. So, and this conversation never happened. So
You are 100% right.
Yeah, I'm glad we're doing it. It's going to help so many women. It's also going to help so many people who know women who are going through this, right? Just have the conversations.
Well, thank you both. We are at the end of our date, my friends. I thank you both for coming on. It was such an incredible and really inspiring and transparent conversation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, for more information, you can follow Dr. Winter on the gram at Ashley G. Winter and explore Lana Kerr's products at co2lift.com. Remember, the journey through menopause is not something you have to face alone. Knowledge and self-advocacy are your greatest tools. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, iHeartRadio. That was our Going Deep segment brought to you by CO2 Lift. We'll be right back after this.
A Moment of Zen is brought to you by CO2 Lift. As we age, our skin loses moisture and elasticity, causing wrinkled skin. You can reverse this aging process with CO2 Lift. CO2 Lift utilizes the powerful benefits of carbon dioxide to lift, tighten, and regenerate your skin. This simple, painless at-home carboxytherapy treatment is scientifically proven to reverse the aging process. You will see reduction in wrinkles, increase in luminosity, and improve pigmentation, sagging, skin tone, and radiance.
For more information or to order CO2 Lift, ask your skincare professional or go to co2lift.com.